you're ready to wake up, you're going to wake up. And if you're not ready, you're going to stay pretending that you're just a little, poor little me.
Do you feel it?
Yes, we do.
A worldwide awakening is upon us. Welcome to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Where we explore topics such as UFOs, aliens, banned medical cures, as well as classified secret knowledge. Come question your holographic existence. Share experiences from the other side. This is a show that will expand your mind as we decrypt the symbolic messages locked away deep within your DNA. And now, your guides for this magical journey. The hosts of the Universal Consciousness Show, Avi Nast and Diana Seraphim.
Hello, everybody. And you are listening to the show for the thinking global citizen. And here we are with coffee in hand, ready for another show that will blow you away. Because this time we are going to talk about astral travel. My name is Agi, and I'm one of the hosts, and my co-host Diana is over in Germany. Are you there?
Hello, everyone. I'm here. Hello, everyone.
All right. Well, I tell you, this is going to get interesting because we're going to talk about astral travel. What does it feel like? What does it look like when you leave your body, go on the outside, and you can even leave this vibration of the astral world? And this fits right in because I just finished a class on astral travel on the mastermind connection. And this is something that you actually can participate as a listener here later on if you go and look at that. I did a class. If you want to be part of something that is bigger than yourself, consider this. Send us an email to the mastermindconnection@gmail.com, and I'll send you some more information of how you can participate, how you can learn some of these things. I just finished classes on self-hypnosis and also one on meditation, and we finished one last night on astral travel. And in about a week or so, we're going to start one on psychic abilities. So this is something that if you're sitting at home, being quarantined, bored stiff, with a bottle of wine in one hand and the TV remote in the other one, send us an email because we're going to live up your existence a little bit. Anyway, before I introduce the guest, I want to tell you how you can connect with us. You can visit us at our website. That is at universal-consciousness-show.com. Or we are on YouTube with the same name, Universal Consciousness Show. And please subscribe while you're there. That's going to help us a lot because if you subscribe and then also click on that little bell next to the subscribe button, then you will get notifications when new shows are coming out. So that's going to be important. And for those of you that want to hear this show again, just go to the universal-consciousness-show.com or to the YouTube channel. And of course, we also are on kcorradio.com in the archive section. And you will also find us there. So we are beyond that. We are also on Twitter, iTunes, TuneIn, Alexa, Facebook, and a few places that we put it. So we are just about everywhere. And there is also this feature. If you are listening on the KCOR radio website, there is this wonderful little feature down at the bottom of the page that is called a donate button. If you like what you hear, and you want to help us and support us in that way, you can also click on the donate button and send us something. We really appreciate it. It's kind of like a Christmas present almost, because at the end of the month, when we pay the bill, then we get the message saying, well, you had so and so many dollars of donations this month, so it's going to be less than it normally would be. And we love that, because that helps us. And it tells us we are doing the right thing. So, but then again, if you are, these are tough times. So we love you anyway. We are glad that you're here listening, because gosh, if you weren't, it would be just me and Diana and Dan sitting here, and that wouldn't be any fun. So anyway, we are going to talk about astral travel, and I want to introduce the guest to us. He's Dan Brock. In fact, he lived here in Tucson with me. We have become good friends over the years here. And Dan's diverse experience with the multidimensional energetic aspect of reality came to him early. He was motivated by his encounters with UFOs, alien abductions, crop circles, and other paranormal activity. He often finds himself spiritually venturing beyond the edge of physical reality into the non-physical. And I tell you, folks, that's where the real fun is. And in these alternate realities, he communicates and interacts with the human souls and the entities that live in those dimensional existences, those dimensional beings. He has a complicated education as a mechanical engineer and nuclear engineer, and he was working with the U.S. Department of Defense, and also an environmental engineer for the state of Louisiana. Now, a nuclear engineer and an environment engineer in the same sentence, that is something that you don't see very often. For 25 years, he's been involved in filmmaking for Hollywood. In fact, he has his name in the credits for the blockbuster movie Avatar. And boy, am I waiting to see another Avatar coming out. I think they're actually working on it. And now he is in Tucson teaching students filmmaking at the University of Arizona. And both theater, I guess, and film and TV. So it's pretty diverse. And this is funny. His motto is challenge all BS. Of course, the BS stands for belief systems. So challenge all belief systems. And I totally agree. And he has also become a spiritual advocate, and you can find him at dlbrock.com, and his email is dan@dlbrock.com. And Dan, welcome to the show.
Why, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I am glad to be here today, and I look forward to this very much as kind of a follow-up of some of the last discussions we had on working in the non-physical and venturing into the other dimensions as an astral traveler.
Hello,
Yeah.
Dan, and thank you so
Hello.
much for joining. Thank you for joining us again today. Can you, for the beginning, just to begin with, can you tell us in a squeezed story, how did it all begin for you? So what was the turning point in your life that brought you on this wonderful path?
Well, that's very interesting. I had a number of synchronicities and had begun to get an expansion of my connection to the non-physical a number of years ago. And back in it was around 2004, 2000 time period, I was working on a concept for a series, a television or mini series or web series based on the origins of UFO cover-up and all of the relationships associated with that. And I started doing a lot of research. And that research took me into a lot of different areas, and I began reading all of the accounts going back to the early works of Charles Fort and some of the information in Madame Blavatsky's works back from the 1800s, and just looking at everything. And I began having a number of synchronicities and things happening around me that were kind of different, a little bit odd. Suddenly something would appear in my periphery or in my experience, and I'd have to examine it. I'm like, why is this showing up? And what happened is I had a photograph that showed up. That was related to a person that I worked with, and it was a friend of theirs, a close family friend. And this photograph apparently was of a non-human, of an extraterrestrial. And I was really curious about this, and it was one of the best photos that I think I'd seen at that point. And I contacted several people and got in touch with a woman who had some experience working with non-humans, with extraterrestrials, and working in the other dimensions. She took this photograph and gave me all this information about the being, the relationship, and what was going on, and history. And it was like, whoa, this is a lot of different understanding of the nature of reality than I had been operating with on many levels. It wasn't anything that I hadn't heard before and that I was familiar with, but I had not had firsthand contact with it in the way that I did. So I became close friends with this woman, and this was back in about 2006. And over a number of years, I became good friends with her, close friends with her, and she was working on a compendium of her contact with non-humans, and she began to teach me some of her techniques and do work on me. And actually what wound up happening is, I had the experience of having some non-physical work being done on me to see if there was anything there that needed to be looked at or addressed. It turned out there was, and I had some profound experiences as a result of that work being done. And I became even more and more curious and said, well, I have to know how to do this myself. I got to be able to do it myself. And I began to have these experiences of going out and using different techniques to get into the non-physical and astral project myself into spaces and other dimensions and have interactions. And I found very quickly I went from a almost kindergarten level to a PhD thesis in operating in the non-physical and in the other dimensions. Within a year, I had had tremendous acceleration in that direction, and I haven't looked back since then. So I've been into this for a number of years. It's always been a part of my life, the nature of the paranormal and non-human presence. But the excursions and the ability to go into other dimensions and into the non-physical, to have connections with both myself, my higher self or soul, as well as that of others, and working with others and connecting with information out there was an expansive part of this early experience. That was kind of my beginning. There's some more details in there, obviously, but that's sort of the basics of it.
Yeah, you run into people once in a while that have had these experiences, but it's rare that they actually talk about it. If I mention something about astral travel to someone or an out-of-body experience, then it comes out like, oh yeah, I've had that too. But I could have known them for years and they never would have mentioned it. So it's something that people are normally they're a little careful and selective about who they talk to because of the total disbelief that is kind of imposed on society that, well, if it is physical, if you can't see it, touch it, smell it, taste it, and throw it in the air and shoot holes in it, then it doesn't exist. And that is not that way. So, have you broken out of that mold much so you actually can talk about some of these things with friends and so on?
Actually, yes, that's been a big part of this journey. Initially, I had a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety about what was going on because I didn't understand it in those early days, some 15 or so years ago when I was just getting into this. The fear factor was very palpable. It was very present. And what I've discovered is that there's a number of different factors that have have allowed me to be more public and be more verbal about my experiences. One is my own growth in confidence in the work that I've been able to do, and having corroboration between myself and other individuals of the experiences that I've had that validate the kinds of interactions. And this is something that was in the works of Robert Monroe and the individuals that have worked with him in astral projection with the Moreau Institute. Have people working together in coordination to have experiences and checking back and forth with each other with their notes about what they experienced afterwards, and it turned out they were having very similar experiences. So that was one aspect. The other is we've just had such an explosion in our society, the awareness of this, a growing validation from mainstream science for the importance of recognizing how the non-physical is a part of our existence, and that other dimensions and other aspects of reality are in actuality real. They're actual aspects of who and what we are that have to be acknowledged if we're truly going to begin to embrace the nature of our real reality, the true reality that we exist in.
Absolutely.
So, then the other thing is, I feel on the non-physical side, it's kind of like, a swelling with a response. We've had more and more and more people that have an awareness of this and are beginning to explore it and examine it. And they've had more beings out in the universe that have come here and helped to sort of bridge or segue that energy and those connections so that we are able to accomplish this more effectively and be more comfortable with it. And then the last thing that I will mention, which I think is very important, going into the non-physical can remind you quite vividly of the impact your emotions can have on you and, of course, on other beings and other entities. And having an understanding of the nature of your emotions is really important. And realizing, for me, has been my realization that anytime I react to something, and react emotionally, then there is something in me that likely needs addressing and or correcting, so that I can better understand that situation and not react to it. Because in the rest of the universe, the emotional level that humans experience winds up creating a challenge, a difficulty, and it winds up being a layer that you can't seem to get through as easily because there's an emotional reaction in the physical to something that you're experiencing. So in working in the non-physical, you're able to access those emotions and work towards correcting them and understanding them and seeing their origins. So that understanding and that journey is another part of this process.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the Monroe Institute. And I recommend for people to go there because there is physical, scientific evidence that this is real. They have hundreds of experiments that is done where people go out and they come back and write down what they saw, and they saw the same thing when they went to the same place. So this cannot even be questioned because the science is behind it. And this
is very true. This is very true. There's a lot of research that has been done on this phenomena over the years, and it's pretty difficult to question its validity. A person who chooses to ignore it is a person who doesn't look at the research.
Yeah.
The research validates the existence of the non-physical and the ability of human beings to access it. Very much so.
Another question that I get ever so often is that, is it safe?
Well, that's always a relative question, right?
Yeah.
Because, your fear of the unknown, fear is sort of the basis. It's one of our emotional reactions. And it's extremely strong and powerful and generates an enormous amount of energy. I feel that safety comes in preparation. Is anything safe? Is going out of your house safe? Is going to the bathroom safe? Which is apparently where most people have accidents, it seems. These are always questions for us. But we can do things that we know can help protect us and make being in an environment safe. One of the things that I use is, and this is a general sort of approach, and you and Augie and I were discussing this earlier about protection. One of the things that I do is I sort of visualize myself as a point of radiance when I go out into the non-physical, that I bring a light in to me, and I act as a point of radiance for the as an attractor for the most beneficial kind of energy and beings to come to me. And those that are not so beneficial don't get as close to me because of the presence of that light and that radiance. And then there are things that you can say in the physical and do in the physical. I know, Augie, that you use a saying that you use that sets up a condition. Do you want to share that with the folks?
Yeah, that's something just that I know different people use different things, and some people use nothing, and that works too. If you have a lot of fear, you probably should put something around you for some type of protection. I use the light. I visualize myself inside a bubble of light, and when I do go out like that, the negative vibrational entities out there, they don't like that, or they're afraid of it, so they don't come up to you and they don't want to communicate or anything. But I also have a phrase that I use, and that is just something that I have used for a long time, and that is that, I tell myself I am in the bright white light of the Universal Father. That's the term I use. And then I say, this bright light will stay with me long after I quit thinking about it. So I don't know what this phrase does, but the light stays with me even after I quit thinking about it. So when I go, I don't really see it so much, but I know it is there.
This is really wonderful. It's very much akin to some of the techniques that I've employed and used. There's a gentleman here in town named Jim Nichols, who Augie knows as well, and he was gracious enough to share with me a mantra that he has shared with other folks who've used it professionally, and it's a spiritual protection mantra, and it has 4 lines in it, and you say each of the 4 lines 3 times. The light of God never fails. I live this day in God light. God is in control wherever I am. And then this last phrase, which I think is really interesting and powerful. The harmony of my true being is my ultimate protection. And, those words, have meaning to us, of symbolic meaning, and they permeate into the non-physical and generate the kind of intention that we're setting for our own existence in the non-physical, which is a part of who and what we are.
Yeah.
Protection is something you can do in any number of different levels as well. You can also employ, one of the things I do is use a form of energetic bubble that's protective around me. And you can bathe yourself in the light when you're sleeping to protect you from non-beneficial influences or connections or anything when you're unconscious. And, there's just so many different aspects of this, but I think that's probably one of the first things you can do is seek the assistance of the universe in protecting you.
Yes,
beneficial aspects of the universe.
And I see now we got 1 minute left to the break. And folks, don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial if you have one, because we're going to be back and we're going to talk with Dan Brock about his experiences outside of the physical, and how you can also participate in something like this, because it can be done. If you decide, it will be done. So let's go to break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly connection to the truth.
You get to really sort of enjoy a bizarre ride.
Share your knowledge by calling our hotline number at 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230.
Call now.
Worldwide callers find us on Skype at KCOR Radio. It's time to abandon your fear and question what you think you know.
And now, if you will, accompany me on a journey to the future.
More awakening awaits.
After this, after this, after this, after this, after this, after this.
Hello, KCOR listeners. Lori and Fenton here from the Fenton Files to tell you how to watch UFOCon 2020, which was held right before the virus scare in Shelter in Place. It was a conference like no other, so don't miss out on the specially priced on-demand replay of what is already the most talked about conference of 2020. Visit UFOCon2020.com. That's UFOCon2020.com.
The Fenton Files, where it's all connected.
You see, whoever controls technology controls the world.
Come explore a universe full of possibilities. Every Monday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. The Fenton Files. Go where no other show has gone before.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there.
Whether it be UFOs, aliens, conspiracies, or even consciousness, your host, Lorian Fenton, has a file for that. The Fenton Files. Your journey to the truth is but a file away. Live, Monday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The Fenton Files.
Incredibly intense.
Where truth is just waiting to be discovered.
Okay, men, time to be an all-star caregiver. Drive them to physical therapy, doctor's appointments, be there emotionally and physically. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Monday nights are about to become hauntingly good, as Reverend Sean Whittington possesses the airwaves with Vegas Supernatural. Tune in every Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern for Vegas Supernatural, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. There's a war raging between good and evil. The question is, which side are you fighting on? Tune in Monday nights as Reverend Sean Whittington sets the new standard for paranormal radio with some of the most influential personalities in the world today. Vegas Supernatural, hosted by Reverend Sean Whittington, every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. The one show even the devil doesn't want you to hear.
It's
showtime! Here we go, world.
You're listening to the KCOR Digital Radio Network.
Broadcasting from the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada.
Their base is so large it has to draw most of its power from the nearby nuclear fusion plant.
The future of radio is here and now.
Going live in 3, 2, 1.
It's time, once again, to unravel the mysteries of the universe by connecting the dots to a higher consciousness. This is the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Now the world will begin hearing us.
Share your knowledge by calling 702-425-9230. That's 702-425-9230. Worldwide callers use Skype name KCOR Radio.
It's as simple as that.
Find us on Twitter at KCOR Radio or use hashtag KCOR. Even better, join us on the live chat at KCORradio.com. Back to your enlightened hosts, Agi Nast and Diana Serafini.
Hello. We are back with the Universal Consciousness Show, and we're talking with Dan Brock about astral travel. And before the break, we were talking about how safe it is, because there is some stigmas with it. There's some misunderstandings, and a lot of people, even if they're doing it, they're kind of nervous to talk about it because of the people, that they're talking to may not believe them, and all kinds of different things going on. But when on the break here, Diana, we were talking, and you had a question that is a very interesting one, which I think most people, their question will come up, and just go ahead and shoot us that question.
Yes, I was thinking while you were talking about how safe this is, I was thinking if there is a risk not to find a way back anymore, so to speak.
This is very interesting because I find that question to be I don't want to say a non-question, but I find it to be a concern that I no longer have because I've understood now that the nature of how I operate as a conscious being with my connection to my soul or my higher self, and I begin to do this work, that connection doesn't really get broken. And I am, at some level, I'm perceiving things out in the other dimensions as they are, but interpreted through my experience, so that I see things in a way and experience things in a way that I can understand them and interpret them. So when it comes to the concept of risk, I guess the first thing is to think about, when you're working in the non-physical, you're sort of splitting yourself in a working meditative state between a conscious and sort of a superconscious or unconscious component that's out there doing the astral travel or having the out-of-body experience. So when I'm out there, I never really have a question about getting back. There always seems to be an easy path for me to get back. In instances where I've had concern over what was going on and did I need to establish a cord back to myself to make sure that I could get back, what I discovered is that I really do have the power to come back at any time. And I can set that as part of my intention that I will return to my body. If that is a concern for me, that I will return to my body at the end of this, even if I fall asleep while I'm having the experience, which unfortunately has happened a few times. So it's never been in recent years, it's never been a big concern of mine, but I can understand how individuals would have that fear response to it. And the one thing I can say is, include that in your protection that you do before you begin anything, that you will be returned safely and completely to your consciousness, to your being, to your physical being in this physicality.
Yeah, and on that note, I think there is a safety valve in the universe. And that safety valve is that when you're out there, you are paired with your physical creation of your body. And that connection doesn't break. If you go out in the astral vehicle, you are connected with a silvery cord to the physical body. But if you go by consciousness, you don't see the cord there. So that might be where the initial, for the first few trips, if you go quite far away, that you may not, I wonder if I can make it back, because you don't see yourself connected, but you are connected. That consciousness will not get lost, and you will eventually make it back. It could be maybe a little bit of a time. If you are confused on the issue, just think yourself back, and it usually happens right away. That's what my experience would be.
But what about the other way around? Because we always hear the people having a near-death experiences or out-of-body experience that they were sucked in their bodies suddenly. Can it happen that you go somewhere and you have a purpose, but you don't manage because you were sucked in your body again, back? So is it possible like that? Or can you control that?
Yeah, what do you think, Dan? Oh, we lost Dan. Okay. Well, then I'll answer that one. First of all, yeah. If we get sucked back into the body, that can happen. And that is usually because of fear. If you are nervous about something, if you get into a situation where it's totally foreign to you, you really don't know what to do. If you are in the astral vehicle, which has no intelligence of its own, but it can. There's Dan.
I'm back. Sorry about that. Something happened. I dropped off.
Yeah, well, that's not important. What is important? You're back.
Right.
Yes, the universe was messing with me. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah, that's
Anyway.
probably it. Yeah, and Diana, ask that question again.
Yes, I was asking that we hear a lot of time from the people they have a near-death experience or an out-of-body experience, that they were suddenly sucked in their body back. And I was asking if this is possible if you are doing a conscious astral travel, that you will be sucked in your body and you cannot go where you were intended to go.
Well, I think that is entirely possible. I don't have a broad breadth of experience with near-death experiences and know the full range of what's possible and the accounts that individuals have given of their experiences with that. I do know that every time that I have had an experience going into the non-physical, doing astral projection, there's a sort of an allowance that I have, and if there's something I'm not supposed to experience or not supposed to see, I just don't have access to it. I can't get to it, or I don't see it, or it appears to me in a way that is possibly blocked, but maybe just diffused. And I just know from spirit is communicating with me at some level that, okay, this is a direction that you don't need to go. Now, in terms of the type of experience that a person has having a near-death experience, that could be very different because it is a physical thing that seems to be going on as well as a non-physical experience. And the two are more deeply integrated. So I really don't have a breadth of experience with that. However, I have had what could be considered a near-death experience many years ago, which I think is at maybe the basis. We were talking earlier about where did I learn all of this and how did I come to experience it? And I realized back in the 1980s I had a near-death experience that may have been, this sort of watershed moment that pushed me in this direction to go and develop in this direction.
Yeah. I see also we have a question in the chat room here from Sharon. She has a question. She says, is astral travel limited to this planet and this dimension, or can we travel to other worlds as other dimensions? Also, would it be possible to astral travel to heaven and hell? First of all, with tongue-in-cheek, I can say I have been to hell because hell is the name of a small town in Norway. But otherwise, don't go there.
Well, I would say hell is Tucson in the summer.
Yeah.
But because it's so hot here. But the experience that I've had is that you are not limited. You have absolutely unlimited ability to travel to this galaxy, other galaxies, and other realities, including other dimensions. This goes way beyond your ability to experience things on Earth, which you certainly can experience, and I've astral projected into the Earth, under the Earth, above the Earth, around the Earth, in different places, all kinds of different scenarios. The concept of heaven and hell, I think, carries with it a fairly strong charge with the interpretation of what is heaven and hell based on our modern understanding of religion, or a traditional understanding of religion. Yeah. And remember that when you're in the non-physical, things are presented to you that have a meaning to you. So it is entirely possible that you may have an experience of a heaven in the non-physical, and that may be a space that you may want to explore and venture into. What it's like, well, that may depend entirely on your experience and desire. And your cultural upbringing and understanding of what is the appearance of that and how it appears to you may resemble how it appears to you in the non-physical when you're doing your out-of-body work or astral travel. The concept of hell, I think, is an invention. There is this dichotomy that we exist in between, the wet and the dry, the good and the bad, the cold and the hot, and, everything in between. And we have to have that for our 3D experience. We come to know reality through contrasts between what is and what is not. And in the other dimensions, everything simply is. And you have this unity experience. So it's very different. As you begin to raise your vibration over years of these experiences, you begin to realize, hey, we are all in a unity state anyway. It's just that we don't realize that in a conscious way. And so those kind of divisions between heaven and hell represent polarizations and a dichotomy of an understanding of the nature of reality.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree on the concept of hell too, because I have read the notes from the meetings in Constantinople or Nicaea at the time when the first draft of the Bible was created. They were arguing for days about what should they create to scare people into compliance. And they came up with this word, which is a derivative of an old Hebrew word made garbage dump, where they took the bodies of criminals and burned them, so that they called that, it comes from helacha, which is that word, I guess. And that's how hell was created, just to control people. So, and but the other part of that question about can we go to other dimensions? Yes, absolutely. And also other worlds, absolutely. And other galaxies. I have personally not gone outside of this one, but I know you can.
Yes, and I've ventured out into the deeper, more ancient areas of the universe, and it can be very different out there. And the kind of entities and beings and collectives that you can come across can be very different to your understanding of what is possible, and it expands your awareness. The challenge might be their understanding of how to interact with another being may be different than yours. So in that regard, I would say, explore, but explore with your discernment. Know when it's appropriate or inappropriate through your own internal compass to know if you should or shouldn't do something. And you can always ask your guides. One of the first things to do is connect with your guides out there, and they will help you to be discerning, to get the information that you need. Because when we're working from our conscious body, doing astral projection or out-of-body work, we are carrying a certain amount of that conscious curiosity that we have about the nature of reality into that space. And sometimes we need that guidance. We need that guidance to know, well, come over here, go look at this. Well, maybe you should avoid that. Or this is the way to think about this or to look at this. Here's something for you to examine.
Yeah.
But did it ever happen to you to meet a parallel you or a future you?
Well, I'll tell you something very interesting that happened recently. This is one of those stories and how this stuff can work sometimes. About 7 or 8 years ago, I had a connection with Spirit, and they communicated to me some information, and I created a diagram. And it seems sometimes that these connections to Spirit are like downloads. It's like if I say Star Wars or Gone with the Wind or some big movie, I can say that, and you can just sort of almost randomly in your mind go to any part of the story if you've seen the film and know the film well, and you can just go to that and you remember it. Other times are very fleeting, and this experience I had in the connection to Spirit was very fleeting. So I was working very quickly to create a diagram of what I'd learned, and it happened so fast that I just put the diagram aside in a folder with other things. Well, I was cleaning out the other day, and I came across it, and I thought, and I kept dwelling on it. I said, well, why am I dwelling on this diagram? There must be something significant in this. And there was a whole series of events, but that sort of were synchronicities that went along with that, involving other people in the physical. But one night, about 4 days after I refound or rediscovered that diagram, I heard from the non-physical, you should come up here because there's a very tall being that wants to meet you and that you need to know about. And I said, okay. So the guide that I was working with told me this, and I went up there, and there was this very tall robotic figure that was present in my space, and it was just standing there. It was about 7 foot, 8 foot tall relative to how I see myself, but it wasn't doing anything. It was very passive. And then I had this communication that came through from my higher self in a separate, communication from my higher self 200 years in the future, and wanted me to see this entity because it represented this tall being that I was looking at, that was like a tall robot, was the spiritual essence of an artificial intelligence from the future created by humans. And that this spiritual essence and presence of this artificial intelligence was related to the diagram that I had created and the information that I had received so many years ago. So it was like a communication that brought in so many different factors. It was really astounding to me what's possible. Just as an example, I want to put that out there so people know, you can communicate with yourself in the future. Your higher self, because your soul essence goes on and is part of other existences in the future as well as in the past. Yeah. And you can be a part of that. You can have connection to that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And, go ahead, Diana.
No, I said only wow.
Oh, okay.
I'm still trying to get a full grip on the implications of that, because it was like, okay, what do I do with this? This is pretty profound, and I'm working on it, to tell you the least.
I know one purpose for it. One purpose for it is probably that, is that if you had that being come to you from 200 years in the future, it is evidence for you that mankind is not going away. We still will be here 200 years from now.
This is very true, a very, very important implication. I had a woman ask me one time in a presentation I did, I feel like there's something that's going to happen soon. And well, here's COVID-19 and the pandemic we're in, and there's this big event that's going to happen, and this was like about 2 years ago. And I remember saying, well, yeah, maybe we're all on this sort of earthly train together. Maybe we're all going to get off on the station there at Happyville, and it's all going to be wonderful. Or maybe we're just going to ride this further down the road, and maybe in 200 or 500 years we'll all get off the train in Happyville. There's a lot of possibilities. We think sort of definitively right now, but there's an infinite range of possibilities. And where humans are going is up to us in terms of a timeline for humanity as we understand it. But we have an enormous amount of future still ahead of us.
Absolutely. And we create our own future as we think, because we could end up in 2 or 10 or 40 different timelines, depending on our decisions in the moment here. But I want to ask you a question. What is the most incredible experience that you have seen or participated in out there?
Wow. Well, that's really something. I'll tell you something that I did come across in my various connections with different beings doing this out-of-body work. One of the groups of beings that I was able to come in contact with is what we would call, from a cultural or societal standpoint, the archangels. And I began to have a deeper understanding of what archangels are and what are the nature of the archangels. And as it turns out, archangels are related to supernova. And they are birthed in supernova. And they are related to all of the materials and all of the elements and particles that are created in that supernova, which then coalesced into the solar systems and the stars and the planets of future worlds. And this birthing process allows them to have this stellar perspective on existence. So they see both the very best and the very worst as part of the same experience. And that's how the sun sort of sees who and what we are. And we don't really think about the sun being limited in terms of its ability to create, but from an atomic standpoint, from a physics standpoint, our sun creates materials as heavy as iron. Substances heavier than iron, if we get up into gold and plutonium and uranium and that thing, occur in supernova. So in us, we have materials that are beyond iron, obviously. We have a number of different elements that are part of what we are and part of our existence. As it turns out, those elements are all related in a hierarchy to the archangels and their relationship to the supernovas, which were part of the formation of this solar system. So when I asked the archangel, Michael, what is your mission? And I was told very plainly, I am a steward of life. And I thought, well, isn't that really wonderful? That's really great to hear, that their primary mission is to be a steward of life, to bring all of those particles together and be part of that coalescing into a new form of life, such as we have here on the Earth, that comes from these supernova sources. And then the hierarchy of archangels represents different supernovae at different levels of influence over the Earth. So the Earth may be primarily one supernova or part of another, or part of another, part of another. And each of those represents the different archangels, Michael, Gabriel, Ariel, that sort of things in a hierarchy.
Okay, that sounds. We have 3 minutes left for the show here, Dan. So also tell people how they can get a hold of you. And then I got one last question for you afterwards.
Sure thing. My website is dlbrock.com. That's DLBROCK.com. And my email address is Dan, D-A-N, @dlbrock.com. And if you go to my website and you go to the contact page, you'll be able to sign up for my newsletter. And I send it out every month on the full moon. The next one's coming up on May 7th. And I send out the newsletter on the full moon, and you'll get the latest story that I have about something related to astrology or space clearing or dowsing or any number of different subjects. My most recent discussion was, and I want to make that available to people, about an energetic pill that Spirit brought to me that will hopefully aid people in their wellness during this time.
Wonderful, wonderful. One last question. I think we got less than 1 minute left. If you can talk to the whole world, Dan, and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
You are powerful. You are a powerful being, and you have a responsibility to yourself and to the universe. And this is rising to our mission here on this planet, to help this planet in this transition, to help humanity and the life on this planet in its transition to the next level that we're going to. So relish in that power and in that responsibility, and rise to the occasion to be everything that you can be and help others in a life of service.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you for being with us, Dan. And next week we'll be back. See you then. And until then, be good to each other.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
This has been the Universal Consciousness Show.
The Universal Consciousness Show.
Your weekly guide to a deeper understanding of the all that we are.
Well, in a few years, it will be a matter of common sense to very many people that they're one with the universe. It'll be so simple.
Live Mondays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, exclusively on the KCOR Digital Radio Network. For more information on the show, hosts, or their guests, please visit universal-consciousness-show.com. That's universal-consciousness-show.com. Remember, there's a shift coming. A new earthly paradigm. A shift to universal consciousness.
Universal consciousness.
This is KCOR Las Vegas, home of the Digital Radio Network, broadcasting from a shack just south of Area 51.
Wait, that doesn't exist.
This is the KCOR Digital Radio Network. Now for the news.